Welcome to the Honolulu Cheese Podcast, the pretty much number one NFC North podcast. I'm your host, Matt. Joining me as always, my co-hosts, Ryan and Moran. And this week we are joined by a very, 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 very special guest. He is from Pride of Detroit, Jeremy Reisman. Jeremy, thanks so much for hopping on with us. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, fellas. How you guys doing?
If I were any better, there'd be two of me.
To give you a normal answer, we're doing well.
Good.
Hey, I just noticed this is about the same time Jeremy hopped on with us last year, so thanks for coming back, man. It's like an annual tradition now. We got two in the bag.
There you go. We got ourselves an anniversary together.
You're a recurring guest now of the Honolulu Cheese Podcast. I think that means you got to come on whenever we ask you. I don't know. I'll have to check the fine print.
At our beck and call, for sure. Jeremy, you want to tell everyone where you come from and just, what you're about?
Yeah, sure. I'm the senior producer, which is just a fancy label for the guy who runs prideofdetroit.com, the SB Nation blog for the Detroit Lions. We're fully employed by Detroit Lions fans, but we're also credentialed with the team, so we get to go to the games, we get to go to the practices, all that sort of stuff. We get to kind of walk that line between like reporter and fan, which I think gives fans of us a really unique experience, knowing that the people that are inside the building asking the questions, watching the practices are giving them, the fan perspective of how everything is going.
Yeah, really cool, man. It's nice how you have both kind of roles like that. You still get to root for the team hard, but you're also semi-involved. So we got the insider scoop. I love that.
Yeah, it's what I think sets us apart from some of the other people in the building, and I think our staff is unique enough where we're still able to be as objective as possible. We're not just a bunch of homers writing all the positive things about the team. Where I think we can look at the team and with a critical eye. Certainly, we've all had enough experience looking at this team with a critical eye that I think that part of us isn't ever going to truly leave us. I'm really proud of the work we do over there.
No, you should be. You guys have a great show. I'm a very dedicated listener. If you haven't, go check out Pride of Detroit. They run an awesome show. Kudos to you guys for that. But
Thank
Matt,
you.
I believe you had a icebreaker question for us to get us rolling here.
All right, boys. So I saw today on the Twitter machine, x.com, the everything app, it is 100 days until the start of the NFL regular season. So I want to know, if you could give the number 100 to one current NFL player, who do you think would wear the number 100? Moran, let's go to you first.
Oh, so you switched it up. It's current now. In the green room, it was any player.
Oh, that's true.
You can give your semi-retired answer. I feel like he could still play, so we'd be good.
Well, I was gonna go with Aaron Donald because he's a freak of nature.
Mm-hmm.
If you come back to me, I got a player for you when I think about it. A current player.
I like it. Ryan, what do you think, buddy?
All right, surely you guys are familiar. Desmond Watson has to be the choice. The freakishly big lineman on Tampa Bay. He's a rookie. What does he weigh? I'm reading it right now.
I did see. Like 465 or something.
464 pounds.
Yeah. That's
6
a good
feet,
pick.
6 inches. He's a behemoth.
That's a good pick. Jeremy, you got a choice for number 100?
I mean, I think maybe I have to go with just the guy that I think is maybe one of the most fun players to watch in the modern era, and that's Lamar Jackson. I mean, he is to me just the full definition of dual threat, because I think a lot of people, when you hear dual threat, you're like, oh, you just mean a quarterback who runs. No, he's a guy who will run if he has to, but I've never seen a guy so patient back there that like will extend a play 30 seconds long just until he finds someone open. Like, he is not really that eager to run for a 40-yarder. He'll rip one off if he has to, but he's kind of a unique person when it comes to that mobile threat, dual threat quarterback, in that he is still primarily a throw first guy, even though he can be so dangerous with his legs.
Yeah, watching the evolution of Lamar as a passer has been crazy, because when he first came into the league, he didn't really look super comfortable, and now he almost, when he's back to pass, looks like he's moving in slow motion, but he's still moving so fast. Like, he's just his processing, everything has gotten so much better. I think I'm just going to give it to Pat Mahomes. Like, hey, Pat, you're too good. Why don't you wear number 100 or number 150, whatever you want to do. You've worn out the 2 number. You're too good for it. So,
Man,
100
so
days
apparently
till the
it was,
NFL season.
apparently it was just me and Mito who heard that question and just thought fat guy right away because that's all I could think about.
There's no wrong answers here, boys.
So I actually have a current player that's going to surprise you guys. I would give it to Penei Sewell.
Let's go.
He's literally a can't-miss offensive lineman. The only way he would miss is if he got hurt.
Now, why'd you have to say something like that?
No, I knocked on wood. I don't want him to get hurt, but he's a freakish athlete. He's very good, and like he doesn't do anything wrong. So
There you go.
Guy's a monster,
Love
no
it.
doubt.
All right. Well, hey, this is going to be a Lions-focused episode, so buckle up. But we had some recent news going. Lions today signed Zach Cunningham, formerly on the Eagles, started out with the Texans. And I got to ask Jeremy, since we have the inside scoop, there are some, what do you want to call them, Twitter birds afloat discussing Alex Anzalone and is he holding out? Is this a signing to ensure we have depth if that happens? What's going on there, Jeremy? Anything you know about?
I can't say anything with direct knowledge of this situation necessarily, but I think it's important to remember that Alex Anzalone has his own offseason routine. He didn't attend OTAs last year. He did attend mandatory minicamp because it was mandatory. The Lions aren't going to have a mandatory minicamp this year. They canceled it because they're in the Hall of Fame game. They're going to start training camp a little bit early, and so I think that's the way they compensated their offseason. They didn't want to do too much too early. So I think there's a very good chance that this signing is like, hey, we're just a little short on linebackers this spring. Let's bring in a veteran guy. Now, they also cut a linebacker to bring him in, so it wasn't just purely a numbers game thing. But to me, I think he's a former second-round pick. People recognize the name, so there's a little bit of an overreaction to the signing, I think. Like, I think there's a very good chance Zach Cunningham doesn't make the team outright. I don't think it's a response to not having Alex Anzalone. If anything, maybe it's a response to not having Malcolm Rodriguez, who's still recovering from an ACL. So they're going to give him a shot to make the team because that's how they operate. Like, they don't care where you came from when you came into the team. You're going to get a shot if you practice hard. But I don't view this as any sort of reaction to, hey, Alex Anzalone is holding out. We need a veteran just in case he's not ready for the season. I don't think it's that. I think it's just, hey, we need a body or two. Let's get a guy who's been around for 8 years and see what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, more help never hurts. But correct me if I'm wrong. Anzalone still has 1 year left on his deal, right? So it would be the time for him to start negotiating no matter what.
Yes, no question. And just by his actions on like social media, there's certainly a sense that, yeah, he probably does want a new contract. And to be quite honest, he has every right to want a new contract.
Yes.
He's probably been one of the more underpaid Detroit Lions on the team. You're starting to see linebackers get $10+ million a year. He's been sitting at like 6-7 his entire career. And, he's 30, about to be 31. And so looking to cash in 1 or 2 more times makes a lot of sense for him at this point in his career. And so entering the final year of his contract, he's looking for a little bit long-term security, a little bit of extra cash in the pocket before, he retires in 3-4 years. So, it wouldn't surprise me if Alex has had those conversations with the team, and everything I know about what they think about Alex Anzalone tells me that they'd at least be open to that conversation, which tells me there's probably not that much bad blood between him and the team right now. This is, again, me speculating at this point, but I would say there's nothing this offseason that gives me the sense there's trouble in paradise here.
is this signing showing that the Lions are moving on from Za'Darius, or they're not tied together, you don't think?
I don't think it has anything to do with that necessarily either. To me, it's still just very much a, hey, Za'Darius, this is how much we're willing to spend. And Za'Darius, at the time, it seems like, is like not interested. But the ball's still in his court, right? I think he's at a point in his career where he doesn't need to participate in spring practices. We see this a lot with veterans. They don't sign until training camp, sometimes halfway after training camp, so because they don't want to participate in all that sort of stuff, and that's they're right, and I don't think that makes them good or bad or anything like that. But if it's going to happen, it's going to be all on Za'Darius, and I don't think, again, at this point in the offseason, it's at a point where we can definitively say no, it's not happening, or yes, it is happening. I think both sides would probably be open to it. It's just a matter of getting to that number that both teams agree with, and it's become clear that the Lions are in kind of ultra cap saving mode right now, and so I think if you're thinking about what number Za'Darius is getting offered in Detroit, again speculating, probably somewhere in the $3 to $4 to maybe $5 million range, where he was getting $11 million before they cut him. So it'd be a significant cut for him in terms of pay if that's around what the Lions are offering. But there's a reason why he's a free agent right now as well. So we'll see if he comes down to that number.
Yeah, I almost feel like Za'Darius coming back is like this weird foregone conclusion. Like everyone just kind of thinks he's skipping OTAs because he's older or whatever. But I also have like a sneaky suspicion that he might just go to a different team. Like maybe someone's willing to pay him a little more and he is up there in age. I don't know. I hope that's not the case.
Maybe like a team that loses out on the Clowney sweepstakes ends up, with Za'Darius Smith. So just that was something I thought about. Just, Clowney's probably going to be the belle of the ball for like that mercenary pass rusher role this offseason. And maybe Za'Darius Smith is like a nice consolation prize, and he ends up, holding out to try to get more cash than, somebody's offering right now. A training camp injury, something pops up, or, a team like maybe not the Bills because of Bosa, but, a team that could use an extra pass rusher, puts all their chips on Clowney, doesn't get him. Maybe Za'Darius ends up somewhere there. The Bengals, if they trade Trey Hendrickson, something like that.
Or the Bears, so he can complete the NFC North roster.
That's right.
There you go.
Get all the infinity
that's true.
Rings. Yeah.
Get the NFC North Grand Slam.
Yep.
Love that. And if there's one thing the Zach Cunningham signing told us, it's, the 2024 Lions let us know that depth on defense is certainly warranted. So even as a depth piece, I kind of like the signing for the Lions. He's a professional linebacker.
Absolutely. In other recent news, we have the Packers have officially offered Jair Alexander, popular name on this show, a new deal. No numbers, as far as I've seen, have come out. But go ahead, Mito. Tell us what's going on.
I was going to say, not a new deal, a restructured deal. We, like you said, we don't know the numbers, but this whole offseason, they've been talking about they're willing to trade him, they're listening, and now we're going to offer him a restructured contract. And man, if he comes back, that secondary, I'm looking forward to it, but it's still a long road. I can still see him getting cut as well. It's crazy with him. There's so many variables there, but this is the first of negotiations, so we'll see what happens.
What do you think's going to happen, Mito? Call your shot. Is he on the team next year? Is he paid? Like, what's going on?
No, he's going to take a pay cut. He's been working out with like every single one of our defenders. He'll be back. And yes, he's going to take a pay cut.
He's got 1 year left on his deal, Miro, or 2, do you know?
I believe it's 2. I could be wrong.
I'd be surprised if he took a pay cut. I think his ego's not there, or it's too much there, rather, I guess. I don't know. I don't think he's the type of guy to do that.
When you don't play, you can't really say much. He hasn't played a lot in 3 years.
This is true. All right. Back to the Detroit Lions. Here we go. So, Jeremy, you haven't been here for a while, okay? A lot of talk has been put in with us losing our coordinators, defense, offense, for obvious reasons. It's a big concern. Sure. Matt's a Bears fan. He got one of them, so it's brought up quite a bit. And there's a lot of nervousness going around on what are the 2025 Detroit Lions going to look like? So what effect do you think that losing both coordinators has on this team this year?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be silly to say nothing, right? It'd be delusional to say that there's the Lions are just going to look like the exact same team. But there are certainly reasons out there to believe that they, if there's a step back or a step sideways or maybe even step forward, like they're positioned to look similarly, right? On the defensive side of the ball, you're promoting Kelvin Shepherd, who was the linebackers coach, but very clearly a strong leader in that locker room. When you're a linebackers coach, you kind of know how the entire defense operates. They were even kind of putting a little bit more on his plate as the years have been going on because they saw him know that defense front to back. He talked this offseason about how he would look at old film of the Lions defense, and just by looking how the offense was lined up, he would in his mind call the play. And it turns out, yep, that's the exact play that Aaron Glenn ran. And Aaron Glenn even said, like, we see the game the exact same way. So defensively, I'd say that things are going to look pretty darn similar. And given that the defense has been kind of up and down for 4 years anyways, I would say it's probably safe to say that the defense doesn't look all that different. The defense doesn't take that much of a step forward or a step back. I think the defense is generally just going to be fine. You hope that it's better because they're healthier. But you never know if they are actually going to be healthier. It's easy to say here in, May that, yeah, they're going to be way healthier. That means they're going to be better. Doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you just have bad injury luck. Offensively speaking, I think is where naturally there's a little bit more anxiety in Detroit, understandably so, because Ben Johnson was such a very good play caller. And again, maybe the reason why you would say, like, okay, it'll be fine is John Morton was there in 2022. He helped install the offense. He knows the offense front to back. He knows the verbiage. So, there isn't going to be that adjustment period of, hey, this is what we call this play. This is what we call that play. Like, right away, everyone is speaking the same language when he steps in the building, and that's all going to be fine. But the big question is Sundays. How is he going to play? How is he going to call the plays? How is he going to use the progression of play calling to his advantage in a way that I think Ben Johnson is very, very adept at? He's calling plays in the first quarter to set up plays in the fourth quarter. I don't know how he's going to work with that in Detroit. I mean, I don't know if that's something that John Morton is good at because he's only had 1 year of like true play calling experience. And I'm not going to, condemn the guy for that Jets roster that he was dealing with in whatever it was, 2018 or 2017, whatever it was. That was a tough situation. He had terrible players. Now he has probably the best roster he's ever handled at any point in his career. And so while I kind of believe the people that say, it's all about the Jimmies and Joes, not X's and O's, and yes, the Lions are going to have a really, 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 really good roster on the offensive side of the ball, you just don't know. You don't know how he's going to be at play calling, and I can't sit here and confidently say, like, yep, they're going to have the number one offense again this year because I don't know. I just don't know. I'm confident they're still going to be very good because they have one of the best offensive lines in football. I'm confident that the run game is going to be solid because in general, if you have a good offensive line and you have a pair of really good backs, play call doesn't matter that much there. But like when it comes to situational downs, when it comes to red zone, those are the critical situations when it comes to running an offense. And that's when your offensive coordinator is really, really shines. And I don't know if John Morton is that guy yet or not.
Yeah, I think that was well said. And my worry for John Morton doesn't even focus on necessarily his ability to play call. I think that whenever you fill in someone's shoes that are as big as Ben Johnson's, if and when you inevitably make a mistake or call a bad play, you're going to be under so much more scrutiny than Ben Johnson would have been originally had he still stayed, right? Like, I feel like he's just going to be so under a microscope, and it's not going to be long until a very rabid part of our fan base starts saying, why couldn't we just keep him here? Why couldn't we offer him more money? Blah, blah, blah. Why'd he have to leave? I just feel sorry for ourselves before giving this guy a real shot.
He just doesn't have equity, right? Like Ben Johnson built up so much equity with the fan base. Like you run the number one offense for, multiple years, a top 5 offense, 3 years running. Like you can, as a fan, you can get around like, ooh, I didn't love Jamison Williams throwing the ball in a playoff game, which, a lot of people were mad about, but like John Morton calls that play and you're like, what the hell are we doing here? Whereas Ben Johnson, you're like, well, maybe that wasn't the best idea, but what can you do?
Lions fans certainly have turned on Ben Johnson in an instant, though, over a third down call early in that game, too. So I mean, you can build up as much equity as you want, but sometimes it's what have you done for me lately? And so, but you're right. Like no one knows John Morton. I think early on, anything that looks like a mistake is certainly going to be amplified just because he's not Ben Johnson, right?
Nobody likes getting Lions fans are no different.
True.
So what is your confidence level, Jeremy, in these guys overall? Let's put on a 1 to 10 if you're willing. Confidence level in these new coordinators.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm at like an 8 or a 9 with Shep. I've been a fan of him since he stepped in the building. He screams future head coach kind of the same way that Aaron Glenn did when he stepped in the building. And again, like that doesn't necessarily mean you're a great defensive play caller. I think even Aaron Glenn had some deficiencies when it came to that. But I don't think you can deny his ability to conduct a room, his ability to know the defense. And yeah, he's a relatively young guy. You know, I was covering the team when he was playing, and so that makes me feel old and time has shrunk. But I think he's the right guy for the job. It was not at all surprised that he got the job. And I also like the defensive staff around him. You know, I think the Lions did a really good job, losing one of the best defensive line coaches, replacing him with maybe the literal best possible option out there in Casey Rogers. And we've seen the secondary make strides with the two guys that they got back there now. When it comes to John Morton, I would say you probably take 2 or 3 numbers away from there just because, again, like there's so much unknown in the situation. I'm confident that the offense is still going to be above average just because of the players that they have. I'm confident that they'll be able to run the ball. I'm confident that in general, things are going to look pretty much like they did last year. I just don't know if I can say with a ton of confidence that the progression of play calling, the critical down play calling, because that was something that I think Ben Johnson was really good at. I know those outliers stand out in the playoff game. I know everyone can armchair offensive coordinate all they want and say this is what I would have called on 3rd and 1 and it would have worked. But I think Ben Johnson was fantastic in situational downs. You know, you look at their 3rd down percentage, you look at their 4th down percentage, very, very good. And John Morton, like the one thing I do want to say about John Morton in the positive is that everyone raves about his preparation. Everyone raves about the research he does with like tendencies and, you know, everything that's necessary of an offensive coordinator from Monday to Saturday, he's going to have down. He's going to have all the preparation. He's going to have all the numbers and tendencies and everything in his pocket on Sunday. It's just, again, how is he with the headset on? And I just don't know enough to have like supreme confidence in him there, but I'll still give him a 6 just because he's getting handed everything that an offensive coordinator would need to find success.
Does either of you guys, Jeremy or Ryan, wish that the Lions would have tabbed somebody for the OC job that had a little bit more play calling experience? I know, John Morton has the 1 year with the Jets and he's been on the staff. So I was just curious from like a Lions fan perspective, if you thought that, having somebody with more play calling experience would have been better. That's not always the case, right? Like the Bears hired Shane Waldron, which felt like, this is safe. This guy's called plays, and he was a friggin' doofus. So that doesn't always equate to success, but I kind of just wondered if you thought that. My thought process was when you're losing both coordinators, maybe it makes sense on one side of the ball to have somebody who's like more experienced. I don't know if maybe Dan Campbell gets more involved on the offense like he did before Ben Johnson was there in his first year. But just kind of curious what you guys thought about that.
Well, when you asked the question, that's what I went back to when Dan Campbell first started. And we did have someone with more experience in Anthony Lynn who bombed. He was pretty awful. And then we brought in an unknown in Ben Johnson at the time who wasn't even like credited for calling plays until like a month in when things were going really well, if I remember right. And that's what kind of clicked. I just feel okay that Dan Campbell is comfortable with this guy and John Morton like that. Like I say, trust in Brad all the time. I think Dan's earned that same respect, and I'll trust it until it fails.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a give or take there, right? Like do you go with the guy that has such a level of comfort in their offense, such a deep knowledge of what they're doing on offense, or do you go with a guy who can play call on Sundays, because there wasn't really an option for both, right? You either had to pick one or the other. And I think I think Ryan's right. Like maybe he pulled from that Anthony Lynn experience and says, listen, I'd rather have someone calling plays that I know sees the game exactly how I want to see the game, rather than someone that I know can call plays in a certain way that has found success in the past. And that's what I think is important to him. I think, he'll even say it, like, there is a specific way I want the offense run. And, sometimes he'll put his hand on the steering wheel. It happened when Ben Johnson was here, and I'm sure he won't hesitate to do it again if he feels it's necessary under John Morton. But I think that alignment is to him more important than experience, and we'll see how it plays out. I can't say for certain that, like, if they would have gone out and gotten an Anthony Lynn type person who falls in line for what they want and then brings in what they can do as a play caller, maybe that would have worked too. But I think for Dan, it's just so important to get someone that sees the game the same way he does, and he certainly got that in John Morton.
And hey, I'm just going to throw it out there. It's completely possible, however unlikely, that John Morton is better than Ben Johnson.
Oh my God.
I
There
mean,
we go.
It is.
Hey.
No, it's possible for sure. You
Sure,
never know.
I said it's unlikely, but it is possible. We have to give the guy, his fair shake, do we not?
It's also possible that I marry Selma Hayek, but here we are.
Never say never, bro. She's gonna call you back one of these days.
One of these days.
Yeah, no, I think I like the optimism there. I always feel like just with the way the NFL's going on play callers and head coaches, and like anybody who knows Sean McVay gets a head coaching job, there's not a lot of like stone unturned offensive coordinators that are like, ooh, that's like an inspiring choice for like the offensive coordinator. Like you kind of have to pull from like young dudes or, dudes who don't have a ton of experience who like, seem to have like a, maybe not visionary, but like, see the game a little bit differently. There's not just like a ton of guys who are like, oh, that's a great offensive coordinator we can just pull with, play calling experience. Defense is a little different because more and more teams go on the offensive side. So I was just kind of curious what you guys thought. I probably would have definitely agreed though. Yeah. Get the guy, like, you don't necessarily know where the floor is, but maybe his ceiling is higher than, somebody who's kind of like a boring pick.
Yeah.
You never know.
Fair enough. And honestly, just to wrap this segment up, I just feel like it was so cool having Hard Knocks in this regime, because we got to see a little bit of Kelvin Shepherd before being hired. And every time I think of him, I think about that clip where he's just praising Rodrigo while also putting down the rest of our linebacking core for sucking during camp. But he's just praising this rookie who came in and just balled right away. And you really saw just like the passion and the leadership, which is all you saw from Aaron Glenn anyway. So it's like it's like birds of a feather, like I'm very confident in him too.
Yeah, that whole like speech of, you guys are gonna make me start a rookie. I don't want to start a rookie, but you guys are gonna make me.
I loved it. All right, but hey, jump into the defensive side of the ball again. So Aidan Hutchinson just recently got cleared for all football activities, right? No more limitations. Yep. He's good to go. We're all ready. Jeremy, what is your expectation that he hits the ground running and returns to his dominant ways from the start?
I'm kind of full belief, like week one, he's going to be him. And sure, that might come with a tinge of subjective optimism, let's call it. But at the same time, it's already been 8 months, right? It's been a long time since a bone break, and that's all it was. There's not like ligament damage. It's just he needed time for the bones to heal. The bones have healed, and now he has essentially a full off season to just practice. It's not one of those injuries where he spends all off season just rehabbing, like Aleem McNeil, a guy who isn't going to probably play for the first month of the season. He's a guy, when he first hits the field, he's not going to look like himself. Aidan, they start OTAs at the end of the week. He might be a full participant then. And if that's the case, like, it's almost a regular offseason for him. And the only thing he'll really have to do is shake off some rust in terms of just like, hey, I haven't played in a year. But considering he'll have all of OTAs, considering he'll have all of training camp, and he'll have joint practices, and I doubt he plays any in the preseason, but to me, I don't I don't get the sense he's going to take a step back. I don't get the sense it's going to take long for him to shake off any rust, because that guy hasn't stopped working from the minute that he's been able to walk on that leg. And so, the only way in which I see him taking a step back is if you kind of remember last year, he was on a ridiculous pace for 20 some sacks. I don't think that was a reality. Like, I think if you stretch out that season for all 17 games, does he have 20 plus sacks? I doubt it. And if you go back and remember those 4.5 games he played, at least 4 of them were against backup offensive tackles. They just they hit this weird string of luck where every single opponent they had was missing their right tackle, was missing their left tackle, in some cases missing both. And so he isn't going to face that kind of luck. So I don't expect him to put up 20, probably not 18 or 19 sacks either. But I would not be surprised with a 14, 15 sack season from Aidan Hutchinson, and with him just being on a tear from the beginning, because that's where he's at his point in his career. He's a very, very good player. He's a threat anytime he's on the field, and I don't think anything about his injury will hold him back starting in week 1.
Plus, he's probably looking for a big bag of money pretty soon. So get on the field, show him you're healthy.
Yeah.
Still Lieutenant Dan to me until I can see him run in a game.
Come on, bro. Don't do it. I will say, just on the Lieutenant Dan thing real quick, I don't know how other Lions fans feel about this for a majority of them, but he does this weird thing where he just flails when he runs, and I don't know what better word to put on it than flailing. He just kind of I don't know, and I don't want to talk too much about it.
He looks like Phoebe out there.
Yeah, from Friends. Just
the comparison that I think a lot of people in the Lions media room always make is Luigi from the Mario Brothers.
That's a really good one,
He very much runs like Luigi.
Shout out to Smash Bros. Let's go. That's pretty good. No, but on that topic though, so because it wasn't a ligament tear that would kind of be more worrisome, is there a way he gets paid sooner rather than later? AKA before he plays, you think? And just wrap him up?
It's certainly possible. I'll say this much, just to cover my own butt, that article has been written, and it's just been sitting in my drafts for several months now, because I do think it's possible. I mean, the Lions team president, Rod Wood, went out into some luncheon and told people, don't worry, Aidan Hutchinson is going to be here long term. So I think they have all the intention to give him an extension. I don't think the Lions are sitting on their hands and saying, well, we got to see you take the field first. I don't think that's a thing really with them. I think they're all in on Aidan Hutchinson. It's just a matter of coming to the right deal. And I think you look at some of the deals that have been thrown around this offseason, and it's made things a little bit more complicated. Probably moved the number up a little bit more than the Lions had anticipated or wanted. And we'll see if they reach that number that Aidan is looking for. We actually talked to Aidan last week, and I was kind of surprised that no one brought up the contract with him, contract situation with him. But that's something, it's another question down the line when we start talking to Dan, when maybe we get Aidan again, just to see how far along those talks are, because I think the Lions are all in. I don't think there's a question in their mind that they want him locked up long term, which just tells me this is just a formality in terms of negotiating and finding that right number.
Out of curiosity, in that drafted story you have, what's the APY on that deal in the draft where you're guessing?
I'm not sure if I've put a number on it, but I mean it's probably going to be around 35, 36, right?
What was the last?
What did Garrett get? I don't even remember.
40. Yeah, 40.
Did he get 40? So yeah, I mean it might be over 40 now. That's the tricky part. It's just do you do what the Browns do? Do you let the Browns set the market? right.
Yeah, and then if Hendrickson gets signed, it could only just go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Hendrickson will probably be a short deal, high APY, but yeah, it's a different, younger dude. So definitely be interesting. Be fun to see.
No
I'm very excited to re-sign him when that finally happens, but I'm also
Ryan, how are you?
Terrified of when that day comes, because it means that we have to start letting some real people go, right? When you invest that kind of money in one player, although he's great and although he deserves it and he needs it, someone else has got to bite that bullet, no?
Yeah, I mean it's why I think a lot of people think that the Lions are living on borrowed time, which is not something I necessarily agree with. Like, but their job is going to get harder, right? They're going to have to let some of these draft picks go. They're going to have to maybe play the compensatory pick game a little bit, but more importantly, they're going to have to continue to draft well. Like that is a high wire act that Brad Holmes is going to need to continue to do, because we all saw him knock out the first 3 drafts out of the park, right? And some of that is, well, I mean, he had a couple top 10 picks. He had a pair of first round picks in 2022, 2023. Doesn't have that draft capital now. Doesn't have the luxury of that. Doesn't have the luxury of a lot of open spots on the roster so that their young players can continue to get playing time. So it's just a matter of like, okay, you have 3 top 100 picks now instead of 5. Can you turn that into 3 starters? Because you're going to have to. Because there are some guys that are really good, that are playing really good ball for this team, that they're not going to be able to re-sign. They're going to do everything in their power to do it, and they're probably going to kick a lot of dead money down the road, like the Eagles do, like the Saints do to some extent. But there are going to be some casualties along the way, and so it's just a matter of continuing to draft well to make sure that the guys that are getting these market setting deals are having their contracts offset by, bargain deals that you're getting from your rookie classes.
So as you were describing that, a name came to mind for us. It's a name that came up the last time you were here last year, Jeremy. Let's talk about JMO for a second, okay? And I know I was going to bring him up, right? But I feel like when it comes to guys like that who could be let go eventually because the money's just not there, and we like him, we think he's good, but we're just not sure if we want to invest, blah, blah, blah. The only player that kept coming to mind for me was JMO. Yeah. And I know how good he is, and I know all the talk going around him. There's a lot of buzz about John Morton unlocking something special in him and really him taking that next step, and I pray that happens. But is he someone you could see in the future just not being here?
He's always the first guy that comes to my mind too, Ryan. He really is. And it's just a matter of him being a luxury at a position where they already have a number 1 guy, where, it's not a traditional number 1 guy in Amon-Ra, right? And people don't think of slot receivers, and, he plays plenty on the outside as well as a number 1 receiver, but he's the guy that the offense is centered around. He really is. Yeah. He gets 130, 140 targets a year for a reason. They value what he does, and he moves the chains when they need to. And so, Brad Holmes said it himself during the owners' meetings, and I think that's kind of what started a lot of this JMO conversation, when he said, like, wide receiver is an expensive position. It really is. And when you're already paying 1 guy, it's hard to pay a second guy. We saw the Chiefs move on from Tyreek Hill. We have seen teams try to manage this. The Dolphins are actually a really good example with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. We just saw the Bengals. Yeah, just pay 2 wide receivers, so it's possible. But we don't know if it's the smart move, right? We don't know if that's the right move for the Bengals. We know they're able to do it, but now they're in the midst of trying to pay some of their other guys. And when I just think about the way that the draft is typically loaded in wide receivers, when you think about sometimes even the free agent market where you can find some wide receivers on relatively bargain deals, I just feel like that there's such a surplus of wide receiver talent that paying 2 guys top end money is dangerous. It's dangerous from a salary cap standpoint when you have so many bills due. So it's really a tough situation with JMO, and I think this year is going to tell a lot. Like, if he balls out, maybe they find room in the budget. If he balls out, maybe they're like, great, you're a perfect trade target right now. You're on the final year of his deal. We can try to pull off a Tyreek Hill type of deal, and you can look back at, and to be clear, like, I'm not necessarily endorsing what the Chiefs did there, because let's be honest, they've kind of been scrambling to find good receivers since they made that move, and they have an outstanding quarterback that can cover a lot of deficiencies with your wide receiving group that I'm not sure Jared Goff has those same capabilities, or at least, can do it in the same way that he does. So there's definitely examples of both strategies, but I'm kind of with Brad Holmes that right now it's hard to justify giving him a top market deal, but his 2024 season or 2025 season is going to tell us a lot about where his future is with this team, I think.
I was just peeking at over the cap to do a little research, little analysis. 2026 Lions, $55 million over the projected cap.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's definitely dudes you can restructure, right? You can restructure Aleem McNeil. You can restructure Panay. I don't know how much restructuring the Lions typically do. Like, there's some teams that operate at a whole nother level. The Eagles, the Saints, that just kick dead money and pay cash down the road. But $55 million over the cap for 27 players is they're gonna have to get creative. That's for sure. Now's when the job gets hard.
No question. They haven't really had to do it much in the past, at least this regime, but they're about to.
Right.
And to me, there's no question that Jared Goff's contract is the first that gets restructured next year. They can create over $40 million in cap space with that deal, and I think they might do the max, restructure there just to let's not even think about this pile of money that we're about to clear, because I think they're fully committed to Jared Goff, and they probably should be.
Well, and what makes me even more nervous for JMO remaining a Detroit Lion is a name that came up before we hit record today, because Matt was a little surprised at what we gave up to get this guy. But Isaac Tesla, I mean, 2 third-round picks to move up and get him. Not the highest rated wide receiver by any stretch, but does giving that much up for Tesla kind of put some writing on the wall for JMO. I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead and kind of jumping to conclusions, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's tough, right? That is it's a lot to pay. It's now become a regular feature of a Brad Holmes draft that there's one of these heat checks where it's just like, what? You did what? And some of them have worked out. Obviously, the entire 2023 draft when they go out and get Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, they just target all of these low priority positions, according to analysts, and knock it out of the park. But then, last year, they go and draft Giovanni Manu from British Columbia, and everyone's like, you what? Then in the 4th? And okay, sure. And now it's Tesla, and I'm generally not a fan of trading up. I'm certainly not a fan of spending as much as they did to jump whatever it was, 32 spots, I think, from the the compensatory picks in the 3rd round to the top of the 3rd round, and especially for a player who's very much developmental, a player who's probably not going to play a ton of his rookie season, but they clearly see a developmental path for him that makes sense. And I'm not saying it necessarily means the writing's on the wall with JMO, because they have different skill sets. I think they're probably going to play slightly different positions and run different routes for the Lions, but they clearly expect this guy to be a solid contributor in one way or another. And I don't know. I again, to me, when you're doing this high wire act that Brad Holmes now has to do, where he can't miss when it comes to the day 1 and the day 2 picks, this is a very big swing, and it's the one that makes me the most nervous, because if there's one thing we know about Brad Holmes is that he's generally pretty good in the middle of the rounds. He's generally pretty good when he has more bolts in his chamber, and so it's not just a matter of the fact that you're taking a big swing on a developmental guy, but you're also taking away picks from next year that could help this team just continue to load with young rookie deal guys to offset the Aidan Hutchinsons, to offset the Jameson Williams, if that's where you want to go. If you were going to build this team for the long term, I think you would want to have as many young rookie deal guys on the roster as you possibly can. Now, that's hard to do when you're a really talented team, right? If this team would have drafted 12 guys this year, half of them would have been cut, right? There's just not enough room on the roster. So I understand it's a balancing act there, but Tesla, for me, that was a little bit too risky for me.
That was my issue with the trade. We were talking about a little bit before we started recording, and I haven't watched a ton of Isaac Tesla film. Big dude, run fast. Brad Holmes can evaluate talent way more than I ever could. But when your roster is getting more and more expensive, and you've paid Aleem McNeil, Goff's on a big deal, Amon-Ra's on a big deal, Panay, the list goes on and on. They just paid Kirby Joseph. Those like you mentioned, day 2 picks, 4th round picks, they become like critical in filling out parts of your roster, whether it be special teams, whether it just be, dudes, depth pieces, stuff like that. It's just like your margin for error just gets so thin if your top of your roster is really expensive and you're trading away picks. It's kind of like what fucked over the Dolphins. Like the Dolphins are at a place now where their roster is expensive. It's old. They took a bunch of shots. They traded up for a bunch of dudes. They don't have a lot of draft capital. So they're just like, they have no depth. Like anyone goes down. So that was kind of my criticism of the trade for Tesla. He could be a great player. It could work out, but next year, Hutch is going to get paid. Like we said, who knows what's going to happen with JMO? Like that, you're just walking a really fine line when you're trading away assets for, developmental guys or, Tesla to me just didn't seem like a dude where you're like, oh, we need him this year. Like the Lions are a team that, in the NFL, your Super Bowl window is 1 year. Like this is the year. And it's just, we'll see what happens. But I do think that, getting rid of draft capital could be something that we look back on being like, should we have just waited and taken Jalen Noel a couple picks, 10 or 12 picks later? Maybe. Who knows?
What's on your mind, Mito? You look like you got something.
No, I just, I don't know. I think it's like Matt's been saying, it's a lot to give up and just makes me think of the Hendon Hooker deal all over again. It's just very interesting how he moves sometimes. That's all.
You know what deal I thought of actually when we were describing it was another NFC North team took a swing in their Super Bowl window for a developmental player who didn't arrive until years later with Jordan Love. When
it's not the same. It's literally not the same.
You had a glaring need that your MVP quarterback needed to be successful, and you forewent for something.
It's definitely not forewent.
But you just ignored that and took a quarterback that didn't start until 3 or 4 years later. So whatever. I thought I'd bring that up because I thought it was kind of similar to that. Because we do have other needs that in our Super Bowl window on defense, especially, could have helped, right? If you're giving up that draft capital. That would be my only criticism of the pick. He could be a great player, but if you're going to give up that kind of capital, go get someone who's going to help you from day one.
Yeah, I think just the difference there is, doing stuff for a quarterback is different than doing stuff for any other position. Like hitting a quarterback makes sure nothing else matters. Also, I don't think they gave up any assets to pick Jordan Love. I think they just standed put and just drafted him. So
our vocabulary is
stayed put.
There you go. Our vocabulary is going to get there.
You guys are embarrassing us.
Wasn't Jordan Love a trade up though? Am I mistaken?
He was, but it wasn't anything crazy. Like, Aaron Rodgers was on the back end of his career. He happened to win. He happened to win MVPs. The guy played with retirement for those 2 years prior. It's not the same. Are we really comparing this electric car to Jordan Love?
It was a little similar. That's all. That's all I wanted to say.
All right.
But hey, speaking of rookies, so which Lions rookie has stood out the most to you in camp, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. We've only really got one practice and, the pads aren't on yet and things like that. But, they were certainly feeding the ball to Tesla a lot. And so he was the guy that kind of my eyes were naturally drawn on the most, largely too, because of the conversation we just had where I'm just like, I need to see what they see in this guy. I need to see why they mortgaged the future there in a way to get him. And listen, the things that did stand out in a positive way are, again, like the size, the speed, particularly the hands. He's a guy who very much catches the ball away from him, very much a hands receiver, in ways that I think we all wish Jameson Williams was a little bit more. But to be fair to JMO, that is something he has improved upon. But like you also saw some of the other stuff that isn't surprising for a guy that a lot of people had as a 4th to 5th round pick, in that he's still working on playing on the outside. He's still working on playing against press. still struggling to maybe create the kind of separation that you'd hope for a guy that's going to be an eventual starter. But he came from Hillsdale College. Like there's a reason why that stuff isn't there. The Arkansas offense was terrible because they didn't have an offensive line or a quarterback. So like he's going into a brand new situation. I'm very eager to see how he plays now. This upcoming week is going to be his first time going up against NFL talent, right? Mm-hmm. When you're in rookie minicamp, you're going up against a lot of undrafted guys. You're going up against 6-year vets who are like pure special teamers at this point in this career. Just a bunch of guys that are kind of like fringe roster players. Friday's going to be his first opportunity to go against NFL corners. It's going to be his first opportunity to be in an NFL offense with NFL quarterbacks throwing to him. So we'll see how he progresses, but it was just by nature that he stuck out in rookie minicamp just because I think everyone's eyes were on the guy. I think the Lions coaching staff was on the guys. I think they were purposely feeding him the football because that's the guy that they were most interested that day. Because like, what can I say about Tyleik Williams when like they're going 75% speed and he doesn't have full pads on? What can I say about Tate Ratledge when it's interesting that he's playing some center, but again, like he's not really doing all that much in terms of like what he'd be doing when he has his full shoulder pads on. And so with so many other picks being in the trenches, I think my eyes were just naturally drawn to like, all right, what's TSLAW doing?
And I don't know how much impact he's going to make quickly. Like he's still going to be behind Tim Patrick, behind JMO, behind Allen, obviously. But I just know that whenever he does step onto the field for that first time, if it's at home, the crowd is going to go bananas. Like, I feel like just being a white receiver in general gets more,
sure,
like a lot more excitement from people. It's kind of like Cooper DeJean on the defensive side, with being a white corner. So I don't know. I think that regardless, he's a very interesting prospect that we did give a lot up for. So I think that I'm just excited for when that first happens, and his first catch is going to be a whirlwind, I feel like.
And to be fair, I've gone into the last like 3 off seasons being like, God, the Lions could really use just a true X, big dude, run fast, good hands. And I've been wrong. To be clear, every year they haven't needed it, like at least in the regular season. But, TSLAW, big dude, run fast, good hands. So who knows? Yeah. Maybe it works out.
I mean, and to be fair to you, Matt, like that is something that the team has been clearly trying to find really since they walked in the building and haven't been able to. They've cycled through, some late round draft picks. They've cycled through some free agent pickups that didn't work out. They've traded for guys that didn't work out. Obviously they found someone in Tim Patrick that worked out for them pretty well, enough for them to retain him and bring him back this year. But he's on the wrong side of 30. And I think they were just looking to find a guy who could fill that role long term. And it's not a huge role, which again, like makes me think I'm not sure this pick ever looks like, wow, Brad Holmes is a genius. But I think they can get like a 6-7 year starter at the wide receiver X position and get like a solid 600 yards and 5 touchdowns out of him every year. Like, I think that is what they're kind of looking for. And I think, I don't know if TSLAW can get there or not because I've barely seen the kid play, but that, like, I think that's what kind of I don't want to say the ceiling because like it could be higher than that, but I think that's an acceptable return on that investment. Even though it seems like a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it's always as a fan when you when you see everybody loves draft grades and where was this guy projected? Where was this guy projected? So as a fan, when you see like my team gave up a ton of capital to move up for a guy who all the draft experts said was going to be a 5th rounder, it gives you like I don't know if I love that. But again, Brad Holmes has definitely earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to drafting. So definitely think I'm willing to be open-minded, and it sounds like the Lions contingent is as well, which is always a good thing.
Hey, fair enough. All right. I want to ask this question to everybody because as the almost pretty much number 1 NFC North pod, this question has not been asked outright just yet. But let's start with Mito. Which other team in the NFC North scares you the most?
I wouldn't say scare. Only scared of the man above, but it's the Bears, weirdly, but it's because
Let's go.
it's the unknown that scares me. Because the Bears could be a team that they're not going to win 12 games, but I guess
Probably not. No.
Ryan, I don't know. I forgot who Ryan compared earlier, and I brought up Salma Hayek. It's been a long day, but I mean, it's a possibility that the Bears are actually good, which is wild to think of. The Lions don't scare me much because we know what we have to do to beat them. We've done it before. And I think their team has slightly gotten a little worse, and that's just because of the change in coaches. I think Jared Goff is going to come back to Jared Goff of the old. And Vikings don't scare me with J.J. McCarthy. So, in short, it's the Bears, and it's just because of we don't know what it's going to look like, pretty much. Ben Johnson can come out, and the Bears have one of the best offenses in the league, or Ben Johnson shows, like Lions fans have been telling us all offseason, that it was all Dan Campbell. Just depends, you know?
What about you, Matt?
I mean, I'm a Bears fan, bro. All the teams scare me. You know, all the teams were good last year. The division is friggin' loaded. Like, if I had to pick one team, I mean, it's the Packers. The Packers own us. They have beaten us. Yeah, I know we beat them in 2025 to, lose 4 draft slots, which was great. That was a fun win. But yeah, I think as a Bears fan, you're just scared of the Packers until further notice. I still think the Lions have a better roster than us. The Vikings probably still have a better roster than us. But yeah, as far as scared goes, every time we play the Packers, I'm scared. I'm still at the point with the Lions, like maybe one more year, but still in the back of my head, I'm like, come on, it's the Lions. Anything could happen.
So I want to ask about this because I've never been able to think of this from the outside perspective for obvious reasons. But when do we transcend from being the lowly SOL Lions to just having a different image of people? Like, when does that change completely for you, do you think? One more year?
This is the year, because in the NFL, in my mind, there's 2 ways to sustain success and be an elite franchise. You have an elite quarterback who makes everyone around him better despite whatever happens. You guys don't have that. Jared Goff is a good player. He's not a great player. Or you have a play caller, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, that makes a difference and just makes all the dudes on his offense, puts them in a spot to succeed. So those are the 2 things in my head that you can't replace. The Chiefs have both. They've been to a bajillion Super Bowls. So if this year the Lions come out and they're offensively, they look awesome, I'll be like, damn, it wasn't Ben Johnson. Jared Goff is a new player. He's like, he's just leveled up, which I think is possible, but cards on the table. If I had to bet on it now, I'd bet on some offensive regression, but we'll see what happens.
And I'll piggyback off what Matt said. If the Lions come out and you guys are a top 3 offense, I will take back everything I've ever said about Jared Goff.
You're going to eat a shoe on the podcast? Is that what you're going to do?
No.
Let's make it interesting.
You still have to shave your beard for the Pistons making the playoffs, but we won't talk about that.
Oh, man. Don't even talk to me about my beard, bro. I'm so upset right now.
That's fine. But, yeah, if the Lions come out and are a great offense, I will apologize. But like Matt said, it's going to be offensive regression, but I would use a much more severe term. I want to see it unfold.
All right, Jeremy, you're up.
I mean, it's hard to say with certainty how the season is going to work out for both the Bears and the Vikings. There's just like so much variance that could happen that it would not surprise me if either of those teams were 11-6 or 6-11. Like I think that is probably the range for both of those teams. I was actually surprised to see a stat today that the Vikings had one of the biggest overturns of roster year to year in terms of returning players. I think defensively there's a lot of moving parts there. Now I'm a pretty darn big Brian Flores fan, and I think he can make, chicken feed out of what. So I think that team is still going to be strong, but the whole JJ McCarthy of it is also just like, I have no idea where that's going to go. I watched him play at Michigan, and I was underwhelmed for a large majority of it. And listen, he's a rookie quarterback, and a really good coaching staff over there that can make good quarterbacks or so quarterbacks look like good quarterbacks, as we saw last year. But I don't know when it's going to click, if it's going to click. Same thing in Chicago, right? Like, they gave Ben Johnson, he's walking into like a surprisingly good situation, and some of that was his own doing. Obviously taking a big swing on offensive linemen this offseason to give Caleb Williams everything he could possibly need. But it's very rare that an offensive coordinator hits the ground running with new parts. It's very rare that a quarterback who wasn't taught how to watch film last year suddenly becomes like this guru and understands everything right away. And so I think the week 2 Chicago Bears that the Lions are going to face could look drastically different than the week 18 Chicago Bears that they face, right? Like, I think things might be settling in by Thanksgiving for Chicago, but it's not going to be there right away. The only team that leaves that has far fewer questions is the Green Bay Packers, and they're going to remain kind of at the top of my worry list, if you will. But they still have questions to answer. Has that defense truly turned it around? We know it's not going to be as bad as it was under Joe Barry. That was a pretty low bar to set, I would say. But even Jordan Love, I think, still has some questions to answer, and we'll see if the wide receiving core is now better, that they've finally broken the spell of first round wide receivers selected. So the thing that we know about the Packers, generally speaking, though, is like, even in transition years, even in quote unquote rebuilding years, they have such a solid foundation of what they do, the coaching staff, the front office, that the bottom of that team is usually 8 wins, right? Like, they're going to be a 9-10 win team because they almost always are. And that's going to be, I think, the Lions' challenge, because they have the highest floor of the remaining teams. That's kind of it. Like, if I had to boil it down to one sentence, it's that the Packers have the highest floor of any non-Detroit Lions team in the NFC North.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of where I'm at too. Like, the Packers are kind of like your consistent, like, they're going to be pretty good. I don't think they're going to be great, though. Like, I don't believe in Jordan Love at all when it comes to being elite. And I know that pains me to hear, but it's just...
I love hearing it.
I know he's shown flashes, and I know this and that, but he still makes just too many boneheaded decisions for a guy who's been in the NFL for a long time now, whether he's been starting that whole time or not. The Bears are the complete wild card, whatever. They could have 5 wins. They could have 12. Like, I don't think they're going to have 12, but...
Sounds pretty scary to me.
That is scary. The unknown is very scary with the Bears, but the unknown that scares me even more is Minnesota. They still won 14 games last year. JJ McCarthy is a rookie, but he's not a true rookie in every sense of the word, right? Like, he probably learned a lot last year, even with 0 playing time. And he kind of got to redshirt a little bit, right? Like, he got to come along in a different way than most of them do. And he's got a quarterback whisperer for a coach. Like, I hate the Vikings so much with everything in me, but I respect the hell out of Kevin O'Connell. Like, for the job they did with Sam Darnold, and credit to Darnold too, like, he put a lot of work in, but I give a majority of that credit to the coaching staff that did something that no other coaching staff before did, and that was they fixed Sam Darnold. Until, we found some kinks in that later in the year, but, going back to that matchup. But, I mean, all in all, I think the Vikings still have a very good team. They have star power. They have Brian Flores, like Jeremy said, who's a great coordinator as well. I'm most scared of them being a legitimate threat if JJ McCarthy works out. And that's the biggest if in the division, right? Like, if he works out, we're going to be in a really bad spot for a long time. That's where my fear is. So
NFC North, some friggin' good coaches, man. We'll see about Ben Johnson, but that's going to be a murderer's row. It's going to be a fun year, boys.
And I know we haven't had rings to speak of with this division right now, but, like, I swear this is the best division I can remember in recent memory. Like, to where every team you can look at and make a case for 10 to 11 wins is absolutely insane. I remember the AFC West being like that when the Raiders had, like, kind of a semblance of hope a few years back, but nothing comes close for me.
Nothing's going to be easy this year. It's going to be a ton of fun.
No. And then everyone has a tough schedule too, right? Like you're playing the NFC East, you're playing the AFC North. Like,
yeah,
everyone is getting a gauntlet, whether you're playing each other or playing some out of conference games too.
All right, Jeremy, before we get out of here, I'm not going to ask you for a record prediction. You can give one if you'd like, but what are your overall expectations for the 2025 Detroit Lions?
I mean, at the very basic level, I think they're still obviously Super Bowl contenders, right? I believe truly that they have a top 3 roster in the NFL, and that's all you need. To me, when you talk about winning a Super Bowl, your roster really just has to cross a threshold, and then you just kind of have to have everything fall into place. You have to kind of get lucky at times, whether it's a critical call in the playoffs, whether it's injuries, whether it's whatever, a coin flip in overtime. There is a certain amount of luck that happens to happen for you to win a Super Bowl, and I think the Lions are in that area where if everything falls their way, or most things even fall their way, then they are going to be in Super Bowl contention. I think when you look at the NFC, I think it's them and the Eagles in terms of best rosters, and I think they're kind of on an island out there. So it's just a matter of can they put everything together? Obviously, the coordinator things is something that is being talked about a lot and should be. But this still remains, to me, such a solid and deep roster that they can even withstand some injuries. And they did last year, right? Like they still won 15 games with all the defensive injuries that they had. It just eventually finally caught up to them. So I think it's hard for me not to pick them to win the division. It's hard for me not to pick them to, at least get to the divisional round again this year. But from then on, it's fate. It's whatever happens, because I truly believe it's not the best team that wins the Super Bowl every year. I think it's even very rare that 1 seeds ever win the Super Bowl, outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, because they're like Matt said, like they have this freaky combination of one of the best players ever to play the game and one of the best coaches to ever coach the game. And so, I think divisional round is I'm not gonna say it's a floor, but it's the expectations floor. Like if they do anything less than get to the divisional round, it's going to be a disappointment. To be quite honest, it's probably going to be a disappointment if they don't make the Super Bowl, just because it feels like now this is like year 3 of their window, and to have gotten so close in year 1, kind of taken a step back in the playoffs last year, and feels like there needs to be a step forward this year, even though they're coming off of 15-2 seasons. So, if you want me to throw a prediction out there, I already do have one out there that's 12-5. Some might view that as a step back, but I think you can certainly win this division at 12-5 with the amount of beating up on each other that I think they're going to do. And then, I think at least the divisional round, and from there, it's kind of hard to predict until you get there.
I think that was well said. I think 11-12 is somewhere in our range too. And we've talked about it. Like, I don't think winning less games means you're a worse team this year. I think we lucked out in a lot of games last year. Houston, that we probably shouldn't have won. That we just pulled it out, and we only lost 2 games all year before we got decimated by Washington. So, yeah, I think it could be a better team for sure. Just got to stay healthy, man. Just got to do it. But You guys have anything else for the good of the group before we wrap up?
Jeremy, you're starting an NFL franchise today. Trevor Lawrence or Jordan Love?
Man, I don't know why, but I am holding on to my Trevor Lawrence stock.
Let's go.
It's a little bit of stubbornness at this point. But I don't know. He's been put through the coaching ringer too.
Yes.
But I don't know. I can admit that me taking him in that situation is more based on like pre-draft stubbornness than maybe it is.
Yeah, you watched
actual evidence of NFL career.
You watched him as a freshman versus Alabama. I get it. Me too.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
I want to ask a follow-up question, Mr. Reisman.
Sure.
What are your thoughts of Daniel Jones?
Is he still with the? I don't even know where he is right now.
He's on the Colts.
Neither does he.
Never. When he got that deal, I was just like, oh my goodness. I do not feel bad about Jared Goff's deal anymore.
Right.
Okay, so the reason I'm bringing that up, and I don't mean to put you on blast or anything like that, but I did it to Matt. I'm going to do it every time Trevor Lawrence gets brought up. But for the first 60 career starts between Trevor Lawrence and Daniel Jones,
Yeah.
Daniel Jones has a better winning record.
Not
Daniel
quarterbacks
Jones
yet.
has about 200 less total yards. He's got less interceptions. His passer rating is 0.7 less, and his completion percentage is higher. Just wanted to put that out there.
That is
Moran,
crazy.
the past is for cowards and losers. We're starting an NFL franchise today going forward. That was the question. Nobody cares about the past.
It's just wild to me how much, it's not even love with Trevor Lawrence. I think Jeremy said it perfect. It's just the pre-draft hope that he was the next guy that people are still holding on to. It's almost, I guess we'll wait another 4 years. That's fine.
That's us. We're people.
That's fine.
Listen, I sat here and watched people tell me for years that Mark Sanchez was better than Matthew Stafford because of the way the
That is
first 3
true.
or 4 years of his career played out.
I was that guy.
That's fair.
When Sanchez went to back-to-back AFC championship games, I used to just
Right.
tear Stafford apart.
Right. That's what I'm
And-
saying.
I
And
haven't
I
said
knew
it in a while too. Coaching is everything. Like, look
It
at what we
is.
were just talking about with Sam Darnold. Like, look what a good coach can do to a mediocre quarterback.
So I will say with Trevor Lawrence, he's gotten the short end of the stick with coaching, and there's been so much change. Maybe in year 12 he'll be fine. We'll see. I don't know.
It's the year 7 bump I've been telling you guys about.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, you made my day, man. Thank you so much for hopping on with us. This was a blast.
course.
You want to let people know where they can find you if you're looking to be found? We'd love to have you back. But in the meantime, if people are looking for their Reisman fill, where can they get it?
Yeah, Pride of Detroit everywhere. So we have a website, prideofdetroit.com, where all of our written content lives. But we do live streams on YouTube. We do live streams on Twitch. All sorts of crazy stuff. We have a premium newsletter where we'll do extra hours of podcasting, some kind of more from the gut writing that I do. That's at prideofdetroit.com/subscribe if you wanted to go over there. And then socials. My personal stuff is at Detroit Online, but I'm not that interesting of a person outside of football. So just go to Pride of Detroit for all that fun stuff.
For sure, man. Well, yeah, go listen to Jeremy and the show if you haven't already. They run a great one over there, so please tune into that. And like we said, we appreciate you coming onto our show and giving us a little uptick in the Lions' advantage. I always love that. Oh, and speaking of which, shout out to our former co-host Jose. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday to Jose.
Happy birthday,
We weren't-
Jose.
we were
Jose,
remiss if we
happy
didn't
birthday.
mention that. Yes. So, I guess we'll wrap up there, gentlemen. With that, may your Kool-Aid stay blue.
Your head stay cheesy.
The Bears.
Peace out.
Thanks, guys.